to be able to consume resources privately. Okay? Unless you have that money, you are a loser.
The IMF was structural adjustment for the South, was imposing rules on the South. The World Trade Organization can be seen as structural adjustment for the North. And not only structural adjustment for the North, actually permanent structural adjustment for both the North and the South.
The people of the world would be much better off without the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The people of the world would be much better off if there was no new round of trade negotiations in the World Trade Organization, which the big countries want to start in November, in which the movement is determined to prevent them starting in November.
I don't think it's because those institutions are doing a bad job. They are doing their job. That is what their job is. Their job is to maintain the global setup, to maintain the reach of the imperialist powers, the domination of the corporations. So I don't think it's possible to reform them. I think we do have to get rid of them, and I think that will have to be part of a struggle to actually get rid of the capitalist system.
It's not official union policy, but my view is there is no socialism. You know, if socialism come about, we wouldn't have all these problems.
So I think we have to nix them, not fix them.
How do we turn stopping these corporations for a day into stopping them forever? It's a question the movement faces globally.
I mean, it's a sort of irony that up there the stock exchange doesn't really exist. It's a sort of virtual phenomenon because they abolished the trading floor and all the activity happens on computers.
It's symbolic in a sense, but that's where they all are. Stock exchanges where they raise money for these projects exploiting people around the world.
Well, $1.5 trillion that's floated on the stock exchanges every single day, and 90% of that being just speculative sort of waste.
The money speculation that takes place is speculation in international money flows. At the end of it, the middle class and the working class who start to dabble in it, caught up in the frenzy, they lose money, and the global rentiers make money.
I'm here largely for a whole number of reasons, because the top 3 billionaires in the world own more money than the poorest 45 countries, because I think that just symbolises a capitalist system which is completely insane and has absolutely no care for human beings, because people are starving every day because of debt repayments, because the world is completely worked in favour of those with billions of dollars and not with those who are workers. And I think May Day, the traditional Workers' Day, is a day to stand together with workers around the world and stand up for human rights and for a world that's not based on corporate greed.
Workers' rights now! Workers' rights now! By the privatisation, by the closures of public schools, the land prices have plummeted, and the valley has descended under a black cloud of economic rationalist misery. Bullshit! Come up it! Our world is not for profit! Bullshit! Come up it! Our world is not for profit!
At the moment we're seeing the ruling class in an international sense is basically trying to wind back the victory of Seattle. To do that, they have to kickstart the next round of the World Trade Organization, and they're putting maximum pressure on third world delegates. Our agenda is to consolidate Seattle. We want to actually make sure that the victory that we won at Seattle is built upon, is developed, is deepened.
The thing I think about the protests in Seattle and so on, they're so important because they are people rebelling in the heart of imperialism. But actually, there has been resistance and protest in a lot of developing countries, actually probably for longer.
In Latin America over the last 5 years or so, there have been wave after wave of general strikes against IMF austerity packages.
A whole explosion of opposition has occurred in the North. I think this reflects the specific nature of corporate globalisation, that it's seen as oppressing the peoples in the North as well as peoples in the South.
I think that most powerfully came home in the protests in Seattle, where for the first time you actually had a revolt in the World Trade Organization by delegates from third world countries who walked out and actually stalled a round of trade negotiations. And simultaneously you had riots on the streets where young people started to say, hang on a second, we don't want to be part of this anymore, we don't want this system, we don't want its rules, we don't like what it does to the environment, to human rights.
I think it's a situation in the north where you're starting to see protest movements growing. We saw S11 here in Australia, the protests in Seattle, in Prague, in basically every corner of the developed countries is a product of long building up tensions and long building up frustrations that people have had with the policies of neoliberalism or economic rationalism or whatever you want to call them in the particular country. Budget cuts, tax cuts for the rich, etc.
The thing that characterises every protest, no matter where it is, in the world is the fact that it's so multi-issue, and that's the strength we have on our side in this movement, is that all the threads are there, we just have to follow the threads, and because the average person is really pissed off about globalisation. They're angry about the loss of jobs in Australia, about the state of rural Australia, about genetically modified foods, about consumerism gone rampant. Our job as a movement is to harness those threads.
It has led people to draw in the different issues, the different single issues in together to sort of see that the problem is actually a global economic system.
Feminist movement, the labour movement, environmental movement, Indigenous peoples movement, human rights movement, social justice movement, are recognising that they have to work together if they're going to have any impact.
You've got Sydney people against a new nuclear reactor who think that rather than pouring money into something which is extremely dangerous, why can't we put that money into alternative, renewable, sustainable forms of energy? So I think that's the sort of thing that, you know, people are putting forward.
Get fucked, Rio Tinto!
I think also this movement has targeted a whole range of corporations for their actions. BHP about the way that it's destroyed large tracts of Western Papua New Guinea. So there's also very direct and immediate things. BHP should clean that up. It doesn't want to, it's pulling out, saying it's not going to clean it up. Well, they should clean it up.
The heads of the corporations, the governments and so on, actually will want ordinary people to pay for any crisis in their system. They certainly do not want to see an alternative being put forward to free market policies and neoliberalism, because actually they are for driving that even further. And I think that's why they hate the anti-capitalist movement so much, because what we're saying is enough is enough. We actually want a different sort of society, and we're going to fight to get it.
What do we want? Free trade! When do we want it? Now! Workers! Unite! Monday is a very important day for workers around the world. It's about standing in solidarity with workers across nations. When they make those Nike shoes, workers' rights they do our views. We're joined today by workers from Bradmill. We're joined today by workers from Suppress 3 and Brush Fabric. In the case of Brush Fabrics, just last Tuesday, these workers turned up for work thinking, oh, they've got a public holiday tomorrow. Last shift before a day off. An hour before the end of their shift, the boss turns up and says, don't bother coming back.